The 80s didn't believe in chill. Everything exploded, everyone had a six-pack, and subtlety was the first casualty. One guy could take on an army, a robot could outact humans, and apparently corporate buildings were war zones by Christmas. Well, these are some of the movies and moments that depict the action movies of the 80s perfectly. Of course, in my opinion. Commando is the holy grail of that formula. The storyline is super simple, but hey, it worked. Arnold Schwarzenegger played John Matrix, a retired elite soldier whose daughter gets kidnapped by some villains who clearly didn't do their homework. Their plan? Force him to assassinate a political leader or they'd kill his daughter. His plan? Kill literally everyone in the movie and pick up his daughter like the goated father he is. I remember watching Commando and thinking, so he's just gonna take down an entire private military with zero help? Spoiler alert, he absolutely does. No call for reinforcements, no elaborate plan, just Arnold Schwarzenegger greased up and geared out. The man turns a garden shed into a torture chamber. He's out here using saw blades like frisbees and casually launching a rocket launcher like it's a Nerf gun at a 4th grader's birthday party. At one point, he lifts up an entire phone booth with a full-grown man inside like it's a gym warm-up set. No CGI, no wires, just pure unfiltered 80s absurdity. This dude didn't even flinch. It's like physics had a gentleman's agreement with Arnold to just sit this one out. And the best part? After all that carnage and destruction, he ends the movie with a chill helicopter ride into the sunset. Like he didn't just vaporize half an island. He's just a chill guy, you know? Speaking of action heroes, before capes and superpowers took over Hollywood, there was Indiana Jones, a history professor who looked like he belonged in a library, but somehow ended up punching bad guys in the face across every continent. By day, he lectures on ancient history. By night, he's outrunning boulders, crashing through tombs, and throwing hands on top of moving trucks. In Raiders of the Lost Ark, he's not after gold, he's after the Ark of the Covenant, a sacred artifact with the power to vaporize anyone dumb enough to open it. If that sounds like your kind of chaos, don't just sit there, like and subscribe before the Nazis get here first. What makes Indy fun to watch is that he's not perfect. He gets knocked around, makes mistakes, and complains the whole time, but somehow still pulls it off. He's smart, tough, and has zero time for nonsense. Also, snakes. I mean, why did it have to be snakes? This movie is packed with adventure, and it all moves fast, just like Indy trying not to get crushed by a giant boulder. It's classic 80s chaos, and somehow the guy with the hat and the whip made archaeology look cool. Indiana Jones had to get dirty for his adventures, but it wasn't only him, you know. You literally had to be a caveman to be a protagonist in the 80s action movie. Yeah, we aren't kidding. Action heroes had to become the jungle. It wasn't enough to have guns. You needed grit, mud, and a healthy disregard for personal hygiene. The forest wasn't your setting, it was your weapon. I remember watching Predator, thinking it was just another bunch of soldiers in the jungle. Bunch of guys with bulging muscles, flexing for no reason and saying things like, "I ain't got time to bleed." You know, classic stuff. Then, out of nowhere, this 7-foot-tall alien with stealth mode starts picking them off. The Predator has infrared vision, plasma cannons, and a weird-looking jaw. It wasn't a fair fight, and that's the point. But does Arnold give up? Nope, he strips down, covers himself in mud like he's prepping for a very intense spa day, and starts building booby traps. At one point, he literally forges a spear out of a tree trunk. Not carves, but forges. I mean, this is insane stuff. The final showdown can't even be called a fight. It's a full-blown survival documentary shot on rage and protein powder. It's just Arnold, a torch, and primal screaming in the dark. No dialogue, just vibes, traps, and a lot of mud. And when he finally beats the alien, he doesn't cheer, he doesn't gloat, he just slumps down in the dirt because he definitely earned that nap. That wasn't just action, that was a one-man nature documentary where humans were the apex predator again. But let's forget about forests for a minute. The 80s taught us about something far scarier. Corporate America. Not for the spreadsheets or quarterly reports, but because any skyscraper might get hijacked by Eurotrash terrorists the moment you try to relax. Especially during Christmas. Die Hard didn't just flip the action genre, it crashed through the window barefoot, quite literally. Bruce Willis shows up thinking that he's just visiting his estranged wife at her office Christmas party. Next thing you know, he's crawling through the air vents with a lighter. This wasn't your typical action hero. John McClane wasn't jacked, he wasn't armed to the teeth or rocking a bandana. He was just a tired guy from New York, stuck in the wrong building with no shoes, bad cell reception, and had no idea what was happening. And yet, he handles it. The genius of Die Hard is that it made every air duct look like a death trap. Suddenly, HC maintenance was heroic. You didn't need superpowers, you just needed grit, sarcasm, and maybe a little sweat dripping into your eyes while trying not to get shot by a guy named Hans. And the cherry on top? It's still a Christmas movie. There's tinsel, there's a tree, there are explosions timed perfectly with sleigh bells. If your office holiday party didn't end with a shootout, a rooftop helicopter explosion, and your boss being thrown out of a window, were you even that festive? Now, if you ever went through any of that, you'd probably end up with PTSD and a therapist on speed dial. But in the 80s, nobody got therapy. If you have unresolved trauma, you didn't journal or talk it out. You ripped your shirt off, strapped on an M60, and let your emotional baggage do the target practice. Crying? That was reserved for after the enemy's base was on fire. If you had time for crying, that is. Rambo First Blood Part 2 was like screaming at the sky while lifting a tank. Stallone wasn't just a soldier. He was every bottled up emotion from the 70s with muscles, a bow, and absolutely no time for government nonsense. The plot? Simple. Too simple. The government sends Rambo to take pictures of a Vietnamese prisoner of war camp. Just reconnaissance. Snap some photos, no conflict. Real chill. Rambo hears the mission and basically says, "Nope, I'm bringing everyone home or setting the whole jungle afire." Next thing you know, he's skydiving into chaos, swimming through snake-infested rivers like a missile with a grudge, and wiping out armies with arrows that detonate like mini nukes. And let's talk about those arrows. I mean, who greenlit that idea? They're basically fireworks with a vendetta. The man's out here solving global conflicts with DIY pyrotechnics. At one point, he fights a helicopter with a bigger helicopter. Because when you got some unresolved trauma, you don't go to therapy. You hijack Soviet tech. And somehow, it works. Rambo barely speaks. His dialogue is 90% intense glares and 10% gunfire. Emotionally, he's a brick wall with abs. But he doesn't need a speech when he's got enough ammo to rewrite entire political histories. Now, 80s action movies weren't just all about brute force. They had their own visual language. If a character wore sunglasses indoors, never blinked, and moved like a haunted vending machine, they were the villain, no debate. If it didn't talk much, had stiff robot walk energy, and looked like it was built in the lab, someone was about to get wrecked. It was a golden era where plot holes were filled with explosions, diplomacy meant a well-aimed rocket launcher, and emotional growth was measured by body count. Subtlety was for the dramas. Action heroes grunted, glared, and flexed their way through moral dilemmas, and we loved every over-the-top minute of it. The Terminator didn't just introduce us to killer robots, it defined what fear looked like within a leather jacket and a CPU. I remember watching it and realizing, this dude's not snarling, not shouting, not even sprinting. He just walks. Through doors, through fire, through people. When he says, "I'll be back," it sounds almost polite. Until he literally crashes a car through a police station like it's another Tuesday. No warning, no hesitation, just full-blown destruction. And that infamous police station scene? It's not your typical action shootout. It's a cold, calculated massacre. He strolls in like a bulletproof bulldozer with zero chill, mowing down everyone in sight, while alarms scream and chaos erupts. But he's calm, stoic, reloading with the kind of focus that makes you forget he's not human. What makes it even more unsettling is that he never really feels like a traditional villain. He doesn't monologue. He's not trying to conquer the world. He doesn't even hate anyone. He's just pure mission, an unstoppable assignment in human form. And what's wild is that the only thing standing in the way of total annihilation isn't some elite task force or cutting-edge tech, it's Sarah Connor, a diner waitress with grit, a mullet, and eventually a shotgun. Because in true 80s fashion, when the future is at stake, you don't call the government, you call the most determined person in the room. Somehow, against all odds and metal, it worked. The world was saved by someone no one saw coming. If you love 80s action chaos, like and share, and if band 50 sci-fi nightmares still haunt you, check out our list. Subscribe for more blasts from the weird past.